In the midst of chaos and despair, when everything seemed lost, a seemingly insignificant encounter would change the course of a millionaire's life. Max Carson, a once promising business tycoon, sat in his office, the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders. His company was on the brink of bankruptcy, debts mounting, investors fleeing, and even his closest allies were giving up. Desperation was in the air. But just as Max sat there, on the verge of losing everything, a moment of quiet interruption came at a red light. A boy, no older than 12, approached his car with a dirty rag in hand, offering to clean his windshield. Max handed over the last of his change with a weary sigh. Yet what came next would stop him in his tracks. The boy, with a serious look in his eyes, leaned in and spoke words that made Max's heart skip a beat. "I know how to save your company." Those words hung in the air like a lifeline. Max froze, not knowing whether to laugh or listen. How could a street kid possibly know about his failing business? But in that moment, something inside Max told him to take a chance. And that moment would set in motion a series of events that would force Max to confront not just his business, but the very people he had trusted, the lies he had ignored, and a past he had buried deep. Stay with us as we dive into this incredible story of redemption, betrayal, and a boy who believed in kindness when no one else did. This is Acts of Kindness Stories. Don't miss out on the twist that could change everything. Max Carson had always been a man of precision and ambition. A businessman at heart, he built his company from the ground up, investing his time and energy into every decision, every deal. He had been on top once, an empire, a name respected in the industry. But now everything was crumbling. Every phone call he answered, every email he opened, only added more pressure. His company, which had once been a thriving business, was now teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Max felt as though his world was unraveling, and no matter how many legal options his lawyer, Hugh, offered, it seemed like there was no way out. Sitting in his office, with his hands clenched into fists, Max felt the suffocating weight of failure. He was trapped, helpless. "There has to be something we can do," he whispered to himself, but the silence in the room seemed to mock him. His trusted lawyer, Hugh Robertson, sat across the desk, a man whose calm demeanor never wavered, even in the most dire of circumstances. "We've looked into everything, Max," Hugh said, his voice steady but tinged with a sense of finality. "There are no more options. The company doesn't have the assets to attract investors, and the creditors are closing in." Max slammed his fists onto the desk, frustration rising within him. The last few years of his life, the late nights and constant grinding, felt like they were all leading to this moment of failure. As the wind howled outside, Max sank deeper into despair, his thoughts spinning in circles. But then a sharp knock on the door. Esther, his secretary, peeked inside, her eyes full of concern. "Mr. Carson, is everything okay?" she asked softly. Max spun around in anger, his frustration pouring out. "No, Esther, nothing is okay," he snapped. He immediately regretted the harshness in his voice and waved his hand dismissively. "Never mind. Close the door." The door clicked shut, leaving Max in the cold silence of the room. Hugh gathered his papers, ready to leave. "I'll let you handle this," he said, standing to leave. Max watched Hugh's retreating form, the man who had always been a voice of reason, now powerless to help. "Thanks, Hugh," Max said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You've done everything you can." When the lawyer left, Max collapsed back into his chair. His head throbbed, his thoughts swirling. Every option he had considered seemed futile. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had missed something important. But what? Where did he go wrong? Minutes dragged on as he tried to piece together his thoughts. Plan. There had to be a plan. But all his strategies seemed like they were destined to fail. Suddenly, Max grabbed his coat and stormed out of the office. His mind was a mess, but there was no time to waste. He was running out of options, running out of time. As he drove, the rain hammered against his windshield, the wipers struggling to keep up with the storm. Max's hands gripped the steering wheel, and his mind was consumed with thoughts of his company's downfall. He didn't even notice the world around him until he came to a stop at a red light. His gaze wandered outside. At the curb there was a boy, no older than 12, holding a dirty rag and a bucket. The boy was hustling, wiping down the windshields of parked cars, a small attempt to earn a few coins on a dreary day. Max was about to roll up his window and ignore the kid, as he always did, when the boy came closer. "Hey, mister," the boy said, his voice surprising Max. "Want me to clean your window?" Max didn't respond right away. Instead, he pulled out the last of his change and handed it to the boy. "Here you go," he muttered, not thinking much of it. But then, the boy did something that made Max freeze in place. He leaned closer to the window, his eyes sharp and focused. "I know how to save your company," the boy said, almost as if it were the most normal thing to say. Max blinked, taken aback by the absurdity of the statement. "What?" he asked, leaning in closer. "How do you even know about my company?" The boy shrugged, looking at Max as if it was common knowledge. "Your company's just down the block," he said, pointing vaguely toward the city's downtown. "I know who you are. Max Carson, right?" Max stared at the boy, his heart skipping a beat. The boy was no ordinary street kid. Something about him, his demeanor, his confidence, struck a chord in Max. He had no idea how, but the boy knew exactly who he was, what he was going through. And for a split second, Max had a feeling that this boy wasn't as crazy as he seemed. Max quickly turned on his blinker and pulled over to the side of the road. He couldn't explain it, but something made him want to hear the boy out. "Get in," he said, waving at the kid to hop in the passenger seat. Once the boy was inside, Max couldn't help but ask, "What do you mean? You can save my company?" The boy hesitated for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "You need to double-check your documents," the boy finally said. "The last project you did, it's not right. There's something off about it." Max frowned. "What are you talking about? Don't you remember me?" the boy asked. He stared at Max, a strange certainty in his eyes. "I'm Tom. My mom used to work for you as an accountant. Her name was Gretchen Garcia." At the mention of the name, Max's heart skipped a beat. Gretchen Garcia. He remembered her well. She had been one of the company's best employees, until she was fired years ago after a scandal involving financial reports. Max never truly understood what happened, but he'd heard whispers of betrayal, of something darker. Max turned to the boy, stunned. "Gretchen's your mom?" he asked, struggling to process the information. Tom nodded. "She was set up. They made it look like she was stealing, but she wasn't. She tried to tell you, but no one would listen." Max felt a mix of disbelief and relief. "Okay," he said, his voice firming up. "I'll call her." Tom gave him a slight smile. "Good luck, mister. You've got this." Max watched the boy run off into the distance, feeling like he was holding onto something solid for the first time in weeks. As the boy disappeared into the crowd, Max realized that this unexpected encounter might be the lifeline he needed. He pulled out his phone, dialed the number he hadn't thought about in years, and waited. The call rang, and when the line picked up, Max's heart raced. "Gretchen," he said, his voice full of uncertainty but also determination. "This is Max Carson. I need your help." There was a long pause before she spoke, her voice tinged with sarcasm. "Mr. Carson, calling to accuse me again?" Max sighed. "No, I'm calling because I believe you were right. You were set up. And I need you to help me fix this." Gretchen's silence stretched on. Max could feel her hesitation on the other end of the line. Then finally she spoke again, her tone softer now. "Fine. I'll meet you. Tomorrow. Noon. There's a cafe near the sewing factory. You know it." Max's mind raced, but he managed a simple reply. "I'll be there." As he hung up the phone, Max realized that this was his last chance. Everything depended on this meeting. His company, his reputation, everything was on the line. But this time he had hope. He wasn't alone anymore. The following day, as Max sat in the modest cafe, waiting for Gretchen to arrive, he couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting would be the turning point. A moment of truth. The door opened, and Max's gaze immediately landed on her. She looked different from how he remembered. Colder, more guarded, but still as sharp as ever. They exchanged a few pleasantries, but the conversation quickly turned serious. Max apologized for the past, for the mistakes he had made in firing her without hearing her side. "I know you were treated unfairly," Max said. "And I need you to help me fix this. I can't do it alone." Gretchen's eyes softened for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "You were always too quick to trust the wrong people, Max," she said. "But I'll help. For what it's worth, I'm glad you finally came to your senses." As the conversation progressed, Max felt a glimmer of hope. For the first time in a long while, he believed that he might actually have a chance to save everything he had worked for. But as they dug into the documents, Gretchen's findings left Max speechless. There were discrepancies everywhere. Numbers that didn't add up. Transactions that pointed to something far more sinister than simple mistakes. Max's heart sank as he realized just how deep the conspiracy ran. This wasn't just a simple financial error. It was a deliberate setup. Someone was trying to take everything from him. And now, with Gretchen's help, Max had the evidence he needed to fight back. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long while, Max had hope. And he was willing to do whatever it took to reclaim his life and his company. The months that followed were a test of strength, determination, and relentless pursuit of justice. Max Carson fought with everything he had, navigating the complex world of corporate corruption, facing the people he had once trusted, and exposing the secrets that had nearly destroyed him. With the help of Gretchen, Tom, and his loyal friend Jimmy, Max began to piece together the broken fragments of his empire. Through relentless effort, they brought the culprits to light. Eddie, the trusted assistant who had sold him out, and his competitors who had been trying to take over his business. With the evidence in hand, Max was able to file lawsuits and expose the conspiracy, clearing his name and restoring his reputation. But the journey didn't stop there. Max had learned valuable lessons along the way, about trust, betrayal, and redemption. More importantly, he discovered that the people who truly mattered weren't just the ones who had always been around him, but those who had shown him kindness when he least expected it. The boy at the traffic light had been the catalyst, and Gretchen's unwavering commitment to doing what was right had saved everything he thought he'd lost. As Max stood in front of his employees on the day of his company's revival, there was a sense of pride in his heart. He had fought for what was his, but he also learned that the key to true success wasn't just about the money. It was about integrity, loyalty, and never giving up on the people who believe in you. "I want to introduce someone who helped make all this possible," Max said, his voice strong as he turned to Gretchen. "Gretchen Garcia, my new assistant, and the person who saved this company." The room erupted in applause, and Gretchen, who had once been cast aside, stood there, overwhelmed by the recognition. She had earned this not just through her work, but through her honesty, her bravery, and her loyalty. She had helped Max when no one else would. Later, as Max handed her the keys to a brand new SUV as a token of his appreciation, he couldn't help but smile at how far they'd come. What started as an impossible situation was now a story of triumph, thanks to one simple act of kindness. A boy's words that set everything in motion. But this was just one story. One example of how, in the face of adversity, kindness, trust, and second chances can change everything. If you believe in the power of redemption, trust, and the incredible impact one person can have, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And if you want to see more inspiring stories like this, be sure to subscribe to Acts of Kindness Stories. We're aiming for 10,000 subscribers, and we can't do it without you. Let's spread positivity together. One story at a time. Thank you for watching, and remember, kindness can change the world.